Welcome back to another episode of Cyber Bites, the podcast. I'm your host, Joseph Cooper, and today's guest, we have Joni Klippert, the founder and CEO of StackHawk, a leader in empowering software engineers to automate security testing and shift left. From her startup beginnings to enterprise success, Joni shares her journey. Let's dive in.
All right, and we're on. Introducing Joni Klippert, founder and CEO at StackHawk. How you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. So good to be here.
Yeah, good to actually meet you face to face. We spoke a couple of weeks ago. Where was you at that point? I was in Colorado?
I am in Colorado.
Yeah, great.
Our headquarters is in Denver, but we're sort of all in the front range of Colorado area.
Yeah, great. Obviously sat in Costa Nova's fabulous offices in San Francisco right now. How's the conference been so far?
It's great. We've been meeting with a lot of partners and customers, and so to be honest, I'm not spending a lot of time on the show floor, but it's really nice spending time with more of our enterprise leaders.
Yeah, absolutely. And when do you end up flying back out?
End of day Wednesday.
Okay.
I cut it short.
Yeah, short and sweet, in and out. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, great. Well, look, with all my guests, Joni, I like to learn a little bit about yourself, your background, how you got into the industry, where it all began.
Yeah. So, I've been building software for software engineers, largely in the DevOps ecosystem, for about 15 years since graduating from my MBA program. And I actually had no technical background whatsoever, but started building relationships at a VC firm in Boulder called Foundry Group. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to work for one of their portfolio companies. And so I was networking like crazy. And the first startup I was with was like a low-code, no-code startup in 2010.
Yeah.
So we were using bash scripts to deploy applications on all these different cloud providers. We can move them from cloud to cloud. It was really cool. It's where I cut my teeth in technology. So I just honestly spent 4 years going to every coding conference I could to learn what the hell I was actually talking about, what we did.
Yeah.
And that was a lot of fun. And then after that company, I went to another one called VictorOps. Mm-hmm. We were a competitor to PagerDuty, and I was running product there. And the big problem that we were trying to solve is all of a sudden we're deploying, this is early DevOps days, we deploy code so often to production. We can't wait for guys in a network operations center to learn about downtime or latency on our production applications because they've never seen the code before. We have to actually ship those types of alerts directly to the software engineers that wrote the code. And that was an awesome ride. We were acquired by Splunk in 2018.
Okay.
And that's where I met our friends here at Costa Nova. Greg Sands was on our board, so that was a really good outcome. Mm-hmm. And it allowed me to do this. And it felt like, just talking to a lot of folks at DevOps Days enterprises and like other conferences, the security team was starting to raise their hand saying, I don't know how we're going to keep up. We're deploying to production so fast, I can't test all of these applications. And during the acquisition process, they actually said, wait, you deployed again? And we were like, yeah, we deploy multiple times a day. What are you talking about? Well, we just ran Black Duck. You can't deploy. So we had to go tell our engineering team awkwardly in the middle of an acquisition, like, you can't deploy software anymore. Like, that was so strange to me. And so I started researching an idea around how do we automate this type of testing so that software engineers can find and fix security vulnerabilities in the process of delivering code rather than waiting for it to be deployed to production and having some third party on an irregular cadence look at what their vulnerabilities are. So that is how I landed in cyber.
Yeah.
It was new for me, but my co-founder Scott, who's here with me this week, he was one of my early interviews and was the CISO at SendGrid through the Twilio acquisition, and then before that ran security operations at GoDaddy for 9 years. Yeah. So he is my practitioner who also wanted to solve this problem and really believed in empowering software engineers. And I really come at it from a DevOps angle and automation angle.
Nice. So you assembled the team with Scott. Where did the name come from? I just love the name.
Oh,
Where did that come from?
Okay, so the name is actually really funny because I've been in tech for a while now, and I'm like, no animals. We cannot have an animal in our name. Like, this is ridiculous. And we tried a bunch of names. And the other vibe we didn't want with our logo or our name was this like red, doom and gloom, scary, like everything you see in cyber is just, it instigates fear. And so instead we were like, okay, let's figure this out. So somebody on my team said, well, what about AppHawk? And I said, okay, well, that's cool. Kind of like watching, protecting, you know. I think I can get behind it, but I said, let's do StackHawk, because what if we go beyond application layer? And what if we want to test more in the future? I don't know what the future will hold, but let's keep it open.
Yeah.
And so we ran with it.
Well, that's a good bet to have done that. So you and Scott, I guess, got in a room, started mapping it out.
Yes.
What then happens?
That's fun. Yes, it literally in my living room, like with a whiteboard from Costco. Met a few folks. I hired early on people I had met in the community who had built SaaS software several times. I had a feeling that we're going to build a company that matters, and we're going to use really sophisticated folks to do it. And so we started mapping out what we were going to deliver, and the early parts of the product. So what we offer is dynamic application security testing. So this is runtime testing, mirroring how an attacker would attack your application. And what's great about DAST is it's language agnostic. So it doesn't matter what you code in, you can use DAST to test. And when you find a vulnerability, it means it's actually reachable and it's actually exploitable. So these are the really important vulnerabilities for teams to focus on. But the tooling was very antiquated. It was very difficult to use. And there were open source solutions out there. And so I was like, well, if there's open source, why aren't people automating this? It was just too difficult to actually use. And so we decided to take a very opinionated approach, and we optimized toward time to value in getting this type of technology released and getting it released in the hands of developers. And so some of the technical stuff we did, we focused on configuration as code. So a software engineer could easily configure a YAML file to get their applications under test. And then it can run anywhere. So it can run anywhere Docker can run. You're not piercing WAFs and firewalls trying to get our technology to run. And the most important part is it runs where your software engineers are already doing tests. So where they do unit tests and integration tests, that's where StackHawk runs. So the software engineer can get immediate results about vulnerabilities they've introduced while they're writing code, with the whole objective of, let's fix this stuff before it ever makes it to prod.
How's it evolved over the last, is it 5 years now?
I know.
Is it 5 years?
It's making me feel very old.
Yeah.
so no, yes, it's been actually almost 6 years.
Yeah.
Since I started working on this. And the evolution has been really exciting because we focused on fixing all of sort of the process problems associated with DAST and shifting left and getting it in the hands of software engineers. But another really important problem was how we build software has changed since the legacy DAST providers wrote their software 10 or 15 years ago, which is these are not browser-based applications anymore. These are single-page applications backed by APIs. And we made a decision to focus very heavily on API security testing. So DAST is sort of the how we test APIs, or the what we test, and have a 5-year lead on testing applications. As we've gone into the enterprise, it's been really interesting to talk to CISOs about what keeps them up at night. So a new DAST tool is great. Okay, awesome. My developers can use it. We can find things faster. You test my APIs. That's great. But I don't even know where all of my APIs and applications are. And I can't test what I don't know about. So there's a higher order problem, or you could call it a foundational in our hierarchy of security needs. We have to actually know where all of our applications and APIs are. And so we recently released a capability, July of last year, called API Discovery. And so the way StackHawk thinks about it is your source code is your source of truth. And we pull in all of your source code repositories, and then we use AI to determine which of those have APIs or applications that should be under test with something like StackHawk. Yeah. It is very illuminating for our security friends of what the API sprawl looks like and how fast it's changing. So that has been a game changer. And then most recently we added, it's actually in beta as of last week, sensitive data type detection. So of all of those APIs, which of them are handling PII, PCI, and HIPAA data? Because all of a sudden we've just opened the world to them that they have a really big problem. And we're able to help them start to reduce the funnel to what do I actually need to focus on and how do I get my program in healthy shape after not testing my APIs for a really long time.
How are customers, so on the scan side as well, how quick is it? How quickly are you?
Yeah, so it's all about the deployment mechanism. So because the scanner runs on the client site close to where the code is, that reduces round trip time of attacks. So you're producing thousands of attacks, and if they have to traverse the internet, it's going to take the scanner a really long time. We also encourage scanning on the smallest units of code as possible, so the microservices layer. And then when you scan the APIs directly, like a single API might serve 100 pages on a website. You don't need to go crawl 100 pages, you just need to scan to that API route. So because of those three things, we've taken a technology that, no kidding, we hear people say, I start with my legacy provider, I press go on my scanner on a Friday afternoon, and on Monday morning, I hope it finished and didn't fall over, and then I manually create tickets. And we're like, this is absurd, right? But because of the way we work, it takes something that took hours or days, and it makes it seconds or minutes. And so it can actually run in the CI/CD pipeline. It can actually break builds and stop that from moving forward so that an engineer can actually fix while they're in context of their code. So that approach is a complete game changer.
The new feature sounds very exciting as well.
Yeah.
Looking forward to that coming out.
Thanks.
Nice. I know over the last sort of 18 months or so, you've been through a bit of a transition from like a PLG to sort of enterprise motion. Is that right?
We have.
Yeah, tell us about that.
Yeah, it was really interesting. So coming from DevOps, I was like, this is what the security world needs, is more easy access to products, open documentation, the ability to try it before they buy. And that is how we led with the company, and that's why ease of use and speed to value was so important for launching the business. And what we found is that early on, we had very good logo volume. About 60% of our logos were engineering-led deals. And I loved that because it showed me, you'll hear cybersecurity people say engineers don't care about security, and I'm like, bullshit. Like, they care, they just can't afford to use your tooling. They'd have to do that as a full-time job. So when you were able to put it in pipeline and a head of engineering had agency over pipelines and over their software engineers, we saw a lot of success with rollout of the product. So that ensured that the initial product we built that was geared toward automation and geared toward delivering value to developers worked. But what it also meant was that our deals are really small. And there's just not a way to really scale the company to the size you want it to be on those size of deals. And as the market started to struggle, there were just less SMBs buying software. But on the flip side, on the very positive side, enterprise kind of started to just happen to us. So we had been in the market for 3 years at that point. And as we started getting these very large enterprise logos pursuits, we realized that they'd been sniffing around for a while. You know, your cybersecurity contracts are long. They're usually 2 or 3 years. So they were ready to reevaluate and buy. And the first year was, what does a good customer look like? Are they really ready to shift left? Like, this isn't just about tools, it's about people and process. Like, do you even know your engineering counterpart? You're going to have to change how you write software if you actually want this to be automated and to leverage the power of developers to scale. And so we started to identify what a good prospect looked like and what someone who isn't ready looked like. And now we have a very strong enterprise motion with some of the biggest brands and logos in the world using StackHawk, and that's very exciting. So we've really leaned into enterprise because we've realized that the wave is here. They're ready now. It's more than an intellectual curiosity. It's a need to actually change the way that they secure their applications. So.
Yeah, it's amazing. StackHawk, very exciting. I'd like to mix it up a little bit and go more on the business side now.
Okay.
So I was speaking to Jim the other day, Jim Wilson, and he mentioned that you've had some really good people around you over the years, in particular your mentor from VictorOps, I believe
Todds.
it was. Yeah, who is that? I'd love to learn just a little bit about that person, why they've been so great for you in particular, because I think that mentorship thing is just so important, and some of the viewers that are listening to this will absolutely need to be thinking about getting a good mentor. So I'd love, who is that person, and how have they been so game changer for you?
Oh, Todd has changed my life and my career in a lot of ways. So at VictorOps, I hadn't run product before, but I was very good at customer development. And he said, hey, I'm building out my leadership team early. So if you're not going to be my VP of product, I'm going to hire one. And I remembered at the last startup I was at, I was like, God, I hate asking people to build stuff. I know what we need to build. I want to run product. And he gave me that opportunity, and always supported me in my career. And so that was a big bet he took on me. And we worked very well together at that company. And then with StackHawk, he was my kind of sort of CEO mentor, early investor in the company. And what I would encourage people, just maybe if there are people listening who aren't sure what to do with their lives next or where to work or how to find a job, just find people that inspire you, that you want to learn from. It doesn't really matter what they do, what the company does. It's how can you leverage whatever skills you have and add value and learn all throughout that entire process. And Todd gave me that opportunity. So he's a board member. He is a friend. And what I needed from him the most, especially early on in StackHawk, is just being a CEO coach. Like there are business problems, and then there's just like shit that happens when you're running a company. It's like, I didn't even know I needed to learn about this or think about this. How do I process? Because I don't even know if I have the right frame to think about this challenge in. And he is just such a good partner in early days of the business and helping navigate being a CEO and running a company and raising money, like being a venture-backed company. He's really helpful there too.
Yeah, I love that. Shout out Todd.
Yeah, hey Todd.
There's another audience that might be listening, and that is the women in security. I know you've got a bit of a voice around it and are an advocate for it. What, as an industry, do you think we can be doing to energize and just attract and get more women into the industry for one, but also through the ranks and in positions like yourself? Because to be honest, the amount of women founders, there are a few now, but it's not enough. So like, what can we be doing as an industry?
I'll start with how I think about this from a product lens. Is I've met a lot of people over the years who would say, I'm not going to hire anyone in product that isn't technical. And I think that is such a big mistake because all you need is an understanding of the market and deductive reasoning. Like you have to be able to understand, what are we doing? Why is it important? How do we grow the team, the company? And then when you're working with engineers, my game is always, I'm going to ask why until I'm satisfied. Because if you can't explain this approach to a non-technical person, you might not actually have the best approach, right? So I became very technical by osmosis, by just being in the industry for a long time. And I think it really keeps women from being in the industry if you force hard technical requirements on them. The second thing I will say is STEM is not equivalent to leadership. So I am a communications and philosophy undergrad with an MBA and also went to business school in undergrad. So there was a lot more that kind of rounded out how I think and how I approach business that had nothing to do with writing code. Yeah. And I think we need to embrace different types of education a little bit more in how we think about building out our startups.
It's fantastic. I think we are doing better as an industry. I think it was like 10% of the total industry population was women, but I think it may be up to like 20 or 30% now. So hopefully over the years it does get better. So let's get some more women into the industry.
Yeah, absolutely.
In terms of the sort of future of DAST, API testing, where do you think we're going? Like, how do you see it panning out over the next couple of years?
I think with DAST, where StackHawk is focused is taking a technology that was kind of dumb, like it was considered black box testing and didn't know a lot about your application in order to test it and exercise it, and making it code aware. And when that happens, and with AI, you can introspect and understand the code base so much better that it helps understand your attack surface. It helps onboard applications and makes it easy to use the technology because you can automate so much of the configuration. And then being able to focus on when a DAST finding comes in, because that's the highest value finding. This is an exploitable vulnerability. Being able to trace that vulnerability back to the code that was written without having to use SAST correlation in order to do it, right? So that is a path that we're on right now with DAST specifically. I think with the amount of code being generated and the amount of code now, like this is like within weeks, right, of these companies that are spinning up, surpassing Cursor and how fast they're growing, allows a non-technical person like me to deploy a fully baked application with a backend and APIs, and that is horrifying. But really what it means is we have to be on top of these trends and making sure that we're baking in security testing as we're writing and releasing software, because if we're waiting at all until it's deployed to production, it's too late because we're going way too fast. So I think that's an interesting thing, and I think in AppSec in general, we're going to see trends where there are products that people buy today that will just become part of writing code.
Yeah.
Like SAST tells us, hey, that looks like an insecure pattern. Already Copilot, we joke it's like Clippy from Microsoft Clippy. Hey, hi, I think you might want to just edit this code because there appears to be a vulnerability in it. That's happening now. So there's so much, I think, that's just going to be kind of baked into how software is delivered, but also we have to keep up with the pace.
Yeah, I was talking to someone the other day and they were talking about vibes coding, which sounded pretty cool. But yeah,
it's cool and scary.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's completely another conversation.
Yeah, it is a whole other conversation, and it's happening really fast. I will tell you, my team is vibe coding applications so fast just to help our business run more efficiently, to create test case scenarios for how we test some of our new features. They can just vibe code 100 apps and go to lunch like while they're writing and come back, and now we have a testing data set. Like, it's really cool to see what can be done, but to my point, it's also a little scary.
Yeah. Oh, positive stuff. What's the future for StackHawk?
Oh, we are really excited to keep growing our enterprise motion, and where we talked a little bit about the evolution today, but whereas we started being a testing product, what we're very focused on is at the pace of software delivery today, it's so important for us to help our security counterparts understand their attack surface and how it's evolving, and then really doing a risk assessment on what that attack surface is and making sure that we're putting the most important stuff under test. And then being able to show not only, of that attack surface, where are you testing with DAST, but where are you testing with other AppSec products, and flowing through to ensure that we are fixing the most critical vulnerabilities and spending our engineering time as wisely as we can. So we are really continuing to sort of expand the capabilities we have, all in the effort of fixing vulnerabilities before they hit production. So we're really excited about growing the business that way.
Yeah, super exciting.
Yeah.
We are currently sat in Costanoa VC's office space.
Yeah.
I'm really curious to understand why you decided to fundraise with these guys.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean, that's a no-brainer. So I have had the very great fortune of knowing and being in several strong VC ecosystems. So in Boulder, the Foundry Group, who was winding down their venture capital firm, they've been paying my paycheck since 2010. So I've had a lot of opportunities in working with them. They wrote our first term sheet for StackHawk. But right there with them was Greg. And Greg Sands is a wonderful human being, and it's really nice to have somebody in your corner that is both a venture capitalist, yes, but also playing the long game with the entrepreneurs that he backs, and how he supports his companies is like nothing I've ever seen before. And the operating partners here at Costanoa are so helpful to companies in helping you try new things, new messaging, break through in a sales challenge, whatever you have. There's really strong people here with really great spirit, and so we're very, very fortunate to work with them.
Joni, thank you so much for coming on the show. I wish you all the best of success.
Thank you. Thanks for taking the time.
Thank you for listening. If you've enjoyed today's show, please like and share with your friends and colleagues, as this is really important for the show's reach. If you'd like to be our next guest or are interested in Aspiron Search's staffing solutions, please get in touch directly with me or reach out to us via our website www.aspironsearch.com.